Hey, what's up? Randy here from Our Cozy Garden, and today we are giving you an update on the dahlias that we started a few weeks ago. As you can see, most of them have 3 or 4 sets of true leaves, so they should be ready to be transplanted to a bigger container. A lot of them are growing tall, too tall and too skinny, because they were placed on this shelf where they receive natural light from this window. But now that we have more empty shelves, as we started hardening off our seedlings, then we can have more space for our dahlias. In terms of watering, I don't water them a lot, especially at this stage that they have their tubers. They will have everything that they need inside those tubers, the water that they need and the nutrients that they need to grow. Although I try to keep them a bit moist, and I think that helps the roots find its way through the growing medium better. I water them at least once a week, and I also water them really lightly. I know dahlia tubers don't like wet feet, so you don't want them to get soaked in water too long. So most of the varieties that we started are growing happily. We have the Cafe au Laits in here. We also have the Blue Boy, which is a decorative dahlia, a smaller one, but it is growing. And we also have the Florel. The Florel is the very first one that came up, and it is growing strong. We also have the Caribbean Fantasy, which is also a decorative dahlia. Now, the Shiloh Noel, if you remember from the previous video, is one of the slowest, and it was a clump of dahlia tubers with most of the necks broken. But it is growing, so I'll be happy to get at least one healthy plant from it to grow for this growing season. Okay, so let's start bumping up and replanting our dahlia tubers. I've decided that for each clump with really healthy growth, I'll be putting them in their own container so that they can grow as much as they can in there without having too much competition. First, let's get our growing medium ready. So our growing medium is mainly sphagnum peat moss with some organic matter. We also added crushed eggshells, which will act as a pH buffer for the acidic sphagnum peat moss. And we also added perlite to improve the drainage of the medium. So I'll start with the Florel. So I'm very careful here so that I don't break the stem. And as you can see, it is growing its roots right there all around, and at this point it should be looking for more space to grow roots into, which is a good timing for us to replant it. Now this particular clump is just one clump with a lot of eyes in there. So far I'm seeing 2 more, aside from the 2 stems that you can see. There's two eyes more that are starting. So I will leave it like that. And also, you don't want your tubers to be buried too deep. I usually have them at least 1 inch or 1.5 inches below the surface. And sometimes you'll have, for example, like that, a tuber pops outside the ground. That's okay. They are okay with that. Okay. Very quick and easy. Florel. Let's do the rest. So this one is our Caribbean Fantasy, and I know I have at least 2 sets of tubers in there, so I'm very careful not to break any necks. I'm also careful with not damaging the roots too much so that I can keep them as intact as possible. There you go. So I can break them apart in 2 clumps. So I will do that so that they can have a good growing space. And of course, even if you damage the roots, I don't think it's that big of an issue, but I just want to give them the best chance of growing healthily and as fast as they can so that we can have flowers before the weather gets cold. Okay, Caribbean Fantasy. So our blue boy, I know this is one of the late ones. It's still very tiny, about 4 inches, so I leave it in there. This one is starting to rot, so that explains why this growth, which was there for a few weeks now, is not growing well. But we can still plant this, not as fast as the ones with healthy tubers. Everything else has rotted, I think, so that's okay. It'll turn to compost. Otherwise, I have this healthy clump, so I am working with this. One thing I learned in replanting dahlias is try to avoid placing the tubers vertically like that, because when you're watering, that will increase the chance of your tubers getting root rot. As you remember, dahlias hate too much moisture, so to avoid that, it's always best to plant horizontally or along with the surface of your growing medium. So if you've seen our first video, we have in here the dahlias that we started back in January or February, and we had to clip them because they were growing really early, too fast. And those clippings we just placed underneath the plant, and they are becoming their own dahlia plant themselves. So I think it is best for them to be replanted, and we're placing them in our 72 cell plug trays so that they can start growing with no competition, so that perhaps we will have a lot of dahlia plants for the next growing season. And here are the dahlia cuttings that we just transferred into individual plug cell trays. So I hope they take root this year so that they can grow their own tuber. And by next year, maybe they'll give us more dahlia flowers for our cut flower garden. In here are the tubers, the Cafe au lait, the Blue Boy, and of course the rest of the Dahlias that we just replanted into the bigger pots. I think they are all growing healthy as long as we can harden them off soon so that we'll enjoy their Dahlia flowers this year. So that's just a quick update on our Dahlias, and thanks so much for your time. Once again, this is Randy from Our Cozy Garden. Don't forget to like this video or click that subscribe button, and thanks so much. Until next video, have a good day.